Hello, welcome to Microfiche Microphone. I'm Micah, and on this channel we look at old newspapers from the past, so microfiche, in the public domain, and we look at them with our modern eyes, our modern perspective, and see what we can learn from them. So on today's Microfiche Time Capsule, we are looking at Kansas Farmer, 17th of August, 1918. This is a continuation of a series I started not too long ago, and it is called Interesting War Items. There are probably a dozen or so of these articles in Kansas Farmer starting in August, and I thought they were very interesting, so let's take a look. They can be slightly controversial. Welcome to World War I, I guess. There's a little bit of propaganda thrown in there, and this particular newspaper is quite conservative, and you can tell. So if you are very, very liberal, it might bother you. It bothers me a little bit, but we will get through it. Remember, we did not live then, and just be grateful we live now. Yeah? So, interesting war items. The health of American soldiers on the transports going to France is safeguarded by strict medical and sanitary precautions. Okay? All right. Open mind, right? Before embarking, a thorough examination of the troops is made by Army medical officers to eliminate the sick. Oh, I feel like in order to find any information at all on the Spanish flu, I feel like you have to read between the lines. I think that this is talking about Spanish flu. Before embarking, a thorough examination of the troops is made by Army medical officers to eliminate the sick. So I guess they quarantine them if they're sick, to make sure that they're not spreading Spanish flu. Good job. I don't know how effective that was, but hey. Within 5 days of sailing, the commanding officer of troops submits to the senior naval surgeon a statement that all his men have received protective vaccinations. If any have not, he designates the men to be vaccinated. I wonder what vaccinations they had back then. You know what? I'm going to look that up real quick. Just out of sheer curiosity. What vaccinations were standard in World War I? All right, looked it up. It says it is from gavi.org. I'm not sure who is behind that kind of a site, but hey, it says chlorinated antibacterial washes were deployed generously at the front, and most of the soldiers in the trenches were vaccinated against smallpox, cholera, and typhoid before they shipped out. So it sounds like that's what they were talking about. That would make sense to me. Smallpox being very prevalent at the time. In fact, there was a horrible smallpox outbreak in the 20th century. But thank goodness it has since been eradicated. After embarkation, I think they mean embarkment. Embarkation, all troops must spend at least an hour and a half daily on deck, each man bringing his blankets to be aired. Commanding officers must see to it that their men receive 30 minutes of physical exercise during this period. All men are expected to live in the open as much as the weather will permit. Okay. All men and their effects are inspected twice weekly by medical and commanding officers to make sure that the men are observing the rules of hygiene. Officers are instructed to see that the men sleep with proper coverings and that they do not sleep on deck or elsewhere without proper protection. That's good, I guess. I doubt that was always possible, but hey, they do what they can, right? Men are not permitted to close the ventilators or otherwise interfere with the flow of air. Guards are stationed day and night at drinking fountains and other points to enforce cleanliness. Spitting on deck is strictly forbidden. Okay, no offense, but I sincerely doubt that was enforced. Either that or they would clean it, you know. I just can't picture them being that strict during World War I. Okay. Every man must take a shower bath daily and change his underclothing at least once during the voyage. Oh my gosh. and must change his underclothing at least once during the voyage. You know how long that took? Like taking a shower bath daily. I wonder how they did that. Is that like, did they install showers on the boats like back then? Because I don't think that would be very practical once they were on land. Like, at sea, is that... I don't know. Like, I don't know how normal that is, so to speak. Especially in the ships back then. Like, I just have no picture in my head what they looked like. I mean, I know what their modern ships looked like. What I'm thinking, what, Titanic-ish? Because that was around this time, but I doubt it was that big. I don't know. These and other regulations were promulgated by the Surgeon General of the Navy. The senior naval surgeon is made responsible for the sanitation of the ship and for the routine care of all men who are sick enough to require treatment other than first aid. Like, that... Jeez. I mean, that's very short, but it's like... It kind of packed a punch there. Alright. The President on Mob Law. I have called upon the nation to put its great energy into this war, and it has responded with a spirit and a genius for action that has thrilled the world. I now call upon it and its men and women everywhere to see to it that its laws are kept inviolate, its fame untarnished. Okay, I'm not sure what he was referring to here. I'm sorry. Its fame. Its laws. What's laws? He uses a lot of its without specifying what he's talking about. A spirit and a genius for action that has thrilled the world. I now call upon it. Call upon the country, I guess? Upon its men and women everywhere. To see to it that its laws are kept inviolate, its fame untarnished. I think it refers to the country here, but that was not very well worded there, dude. I can never accept any man as a champion of liberty, either for ourselves or for the world, who does not reverence and obey the laws of our beloved land, whose laws we ourselves have made. He has adopted the standards of the enemies of the country, whom he affects to despise. What? Who does not reverence and obey the laws of our beloved land, whose laws we ourselves have made. He has adopted the standards... So President Wilson said this, Woodrow Wilson. No offense, dude, but you tend to have a jump in your thoughts where you skip a sentence. So, okay, Let me insert a sentence what I think he means. Hopefully I'm right. So, champion of liberty either for ourselves or for the world, who does not reverence and obey the laws of our beloved land, whose laws we ourselves have made. Any man who does this has adopted the standards of the enemies of his country, whom he affects to despise. Propaganda. Yeah, because no offense to Woodrow Wilson, but the people in the other countries that were fighting in World War I also had laws that weren't that different than the laws of the United States. So, are you claiming that all people on the other side of that you're on of the war in World War I were breaking laws? That were following laws of their own, but that were breaking the laws of the United States? Because I kind of doubt that. I think that most people know how to follow laws like that, and I don't know, it just seems really strange. Alright, moving on. Kansas boys, real soldiers. I wouldn't be in civilian life while this is going on, writes one Kansas boy from an aviation camp where he is training. Another sends the message from the front, I'd rather be here in the midst of things than to be back there with some other fellow here fighting for me. Okay, yeah, like that was very typical of the time. This was very war propaganda of World War I. However, a lot of people sincerely felt this way, so this could definitely be an actual quote from them. Two thoughts which seem to be uppermost in the mind of the average American soldier, as indicated by the letters written home, are the wish to spare the home folks' anxiety and the desire to play his part well. There is also a certain pride in the bigness of the task in which he has a part, a feeling thus expressed by Maltby B. Babcock. Yeah? Is that a man or a woman? I don't know. It seams the face, and it tires the brain, and it strains the arm till one's friend is pain, in the fight here for man and God. But it's strong to be out where the Okay, but it's great to be out where the fight is strong, to be where the heaviest troops belong, and to fight there for man and God. No offense, but I just feel like them claiming that God was on their side is a little weird. I guess they needed that at the time, but it's just, it feels so very, we're better than them, and God loves us and they don't love them. You know, like, dude. Anyway, German letters barred. The following resolution regarding the use of the German language in letters leaving the United States has been passed by the Censorship Board. Jeez. Be it resolved that all outgoing communications in the German language subject to the United States censorship shall not be passed by the United States censorship with the exception of the mail of enemy prisoners of war. I'm sorry, this... I understand, to a certain extent, why they did that. At the same time, there are immigrants who live in the United States perfectly peacefully and have for the past 50 years who still speak German as their native language. And you are now causing them to not be able to write to their cousins in Frankfurt. Granted, if you were at war with Germany, then I could understand why. I understand it to a certain extent, but it still frustrates me, sorry. You're not allowed to speak this language because we're at war with this country, you know what I mean? And that also means that the censorship board is going through your mail, because they have to make sure that you didn't write it in German, or else they're going to stop it. I mean, if it's a postcard, then I can understand that. But if it's a regular letter, they'd have to open it up, take it out, and read it, and then put it back in. You know what I mean? Did they really do that? Ugh, how many letters didn't make their destination because they got stopped by the censorship board? You wrote the word Germany, so you can't, you know? Oh, man. Alright. Might help. Whatever we non-combatants can do for our soldiers seems trifling and futile, beside what these young heroes are doing for us. Yeah, the most generously contributing non-combatant, when compared with the fighting soldier, is in much the same position as the lady visitor at the base hospital told in the Hutchinson News. "So you lost a leg?" the lady visitor said to the young patient. "Yes, ma'am," he said. "Poor dear," said the lady visitor. "Have a chocolate." Jeez. Oh, that makes it better. Thanks. Jeez. Somebody who had like a traumatic amputation. I understand that people back home don't feel like they're doing anything helpful, and in this sense, they're not really. Yeah, you can hand out chocolates to traumatic amputees, but is that really helpful? I mean, I don't know. Arms and munitions. On one day in June last, approximately 27 million cartridges of various descriptions were produced in the United States manufacturing plants for the United States government. The daily average production of United States Army rifles was broken in the week ending June 29th, an average of 10,142 rifles a day, of a modified Enfield and Springfield type being maintained. In addition, spare parts equivalent to several thousand rifles and several thousand Russian rifles were manufactured. The Ordnance Department has produced, 2,014,815,584 cartridges, 1,886,769 rifles, and 82,540 machine guns since the United States entered the war. The daily output of cartridges is now 15 million. That is amazingly high, considering that the United States had only been in the war less than a year at this point. Jeez. French Mother's Letter. The Committee on Public Information issues the following. Mrs. Wilson permits publication of the following letter as illustrative of the viewpoint of the mothers of France. Madame Woodrow Wilson, Washington, D.C. Madame, It is from the mothers and women of France that I send you these words to prove our gratitude for the comforting and brotherly support that these young Americans bring us with such noble enthusiasm, who are not afraid of leaving their families, their country, and their hopes to come to our rescue. Alas, I myself have given my beloved son to my unhappy and cruelly tried country, and I can understand the pain of those who see their sons go so far, so very far away. Tell them, those mothers, those women with the sublime hearts, how near we are to them in thought, and how moved we are at their sacrifice. They are our sisters through suffering and agonizing worries, and we are brought together through the same sorrow that we will never forget. It would make me happy, Madame, to correspond with some of these mothers if they will send me a few lines. Very respectfully, Madame, I salute you. Madame M. Barbon. Number 1, Rue du 4 Juillet, Pont-Basse, Pyrénées, France. I don't know where Pont-Basse is. Apparently in the Pyrenees. In the Pyrenees, like it's way in the border of Spain. I think this is interesting. I mean, it's just a very sympathetic mother who wrote to the First Lady and asked for pen pals. I think that's interesting. Okay, we published it in lots of newspapers, so hope you get plenty. Democracy. Secretary of War Baker said at a luncheon in Washington, "Ours will be the most democratic army in the world, for ours is the most democratic country." Oh, America. Sorry, but as a country, the United States is very, very proud of itself, and sometimes takes that a little far. Anyway, that's annoying to me. Anyway, but it's okay. Moving on. A millionaire, as he climbed into his limousine, snarled at his newsboy, "No, I don't want any paper. Get out." "Well, keep your shirt on, boss," the newsboy replied. "The only difference between you and me is you're making your second million while I'm still working on my first." Washington Post. Okay. If you want to think of it that way. I guess we're all working on our first million, aren't we? If you are already a millionaire, please let me know in the comments below, because you always need more friends who are millionaires. I'm just kidding. I like, if you want to share that information, go ahead, but it's completely up to you. But I feel like most of us in the world are still working on our first million, quote unquote. All right, keep smiling. Our privates have a way of grinning when they salute, an officer in the National Army remarked only the other day. That shows a higher morale than a dozen ordinary salutes. These smiling Sammies, so Irvin Cobb reports, are giving new will and courage to the Tommy and the Poilu? A Tommy, I think, was a British soldier, if I'm not mistaken. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But what's a Poilu? Their dash and enthusiasm is reviving the exhausted allies and giving them a spirit that cannot know defeat. Well, I think that there's the reason for that, because the United States entered the war kind of late 1917. And so at this point, they hadn't been at war very long. Where most of the recruits were kind of eager to go out to war, whereas in the other countries, in France and in Britain, the other countries that were fighting, they were much more tired. They had been fighting since 1914. So they had been at war for several years. They were no longer eager to be there. They just wanted to go home. Yeah. So I guess that's one way to look at it. Mr. Cobb says, "Always our fellows are smiling. They smile when they enter the trenches. They smile when they charge, and when they return for rest from the heat of the battle, still they smile. The morale of any army is only a reflection of the morale behind the lines. America's men and women must keep that smile on the lips of their soldiers." I like that. Morale is very important. We don't want anyone to get depressed, even though you're in a very horrible situation, and it's definitely not ideal in any sense of the word. I do appreciate that there were soldiers who were trying really hard to stay positive. So I feel like this one, Interesting War Items, was a little bit more upbeat than it usually is. Still a few surprises. And I think that is still a little bit of propaganda, but I think that in general it was relatively well managed. And I appreciate the article. Anyway, So that's all for our interesting war items of today. Please join us for our next Microfiche time capsule. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you in the next video.